Hi guys, so there are some rare occasions when the BBC will actually talk about Brexit, and this seems to be one of them. Now, a representative of the Scottish Seafood Association was interviewed by Good Morning Scotland, where he attempted to avoid Brexit regret. His industry has been deeply impacted by Brexit, but the results have been mixed. It seems salmon has fared much better than, for example, molluscs. The latter saw operations run by generations of fishermen close pretty much overnight. The richer fishing operations and those that were bought up by foreign operators seem to have done better. Have a listen to Jimmy Buchan be challenged with some Brexit regret.
We do also know, as well as to compounding this, there's been technical issues with the customs system that was put in place after Brexit to deal with the new red tape that had to be gone through then. You backed leaving the EU. Do you still think it was the right decision?
It was the decision that our members and our fishing communities wanted to go, and therefore we had to support that decision.
What do you mean you had to support that decision? The fishing communities and the members looked to associations like yours for guidance. And you should have told them, no, it would be a bad idea to leave the EU because it's going to impact us in a very negative way. The fishing communities were being lied to by Michael Gove and Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage, and you should have actually stood up to that, and you should have said, no, these people are lying. These people do not know what's going to happen. These people do not understand the fishing industry. We do. And we know that if we leave the European Union, our biggest market, it's going to negatively impact us. But you didn't do that. Why did you not do that?
We are where we're at in that regard. But I mean,
we are where we are in that regard. That's all you have to say about it? We are where we are. Okay. So we didn't provide guidance to our members. We should have provided proper guidance to our members. We didn't. And your response is, well, we are where we are. So some fishing communities are suffering because of leaving the EU. And your response is, we are where we are. Many generations of fishermen have closed, ended their operations because they can't export into the EU, into the single market, and your response is, we are where we are. But it's a bit late for that.
And fish has been flowing quite well into the EU since Brexit. There hasn't been this critical issues that we're experiencing this week. So
for some products, not for all types of fish. So, yeah, like, some have closed down. Some have ceased to operate because they can't, because of the requirements of sailing into the single market. Because Great Britain is now a third country, Scotland included, even though Scotland voted to remain in the European Union. We'll get to that in a moment. But the Seafood Association and others who are supposed to represent communities said it was a good idea.
We need to understand why this is happening and what actions and what do we learn from this, because this cannot continue. I've continually said, long before Brexit ever happened, we need to have more routes to market. If our near neighbour is the market in Europe, then everything going out through the channel creates a bottleneck, whether that be disruption on the French side or whether it is this critical issue we're experiencing on the UK side. We need to have better plans to be able to be exporters and get our goods to market.
Okay.
Why would you tell your communities and tell your members that, yeah, it'd be a good idea for us to leave, and then complain after, oh, look, there are bottlenecks at Dover. And, you know, the bottlenecks at Dover were highlighted before Brexit. Now, he's saying, before Brexit, I was talking about how we should have other routes to market. But if you're a third country, it doesn't matter how many routes to market you have if there are certain restrictions. Now, of course, he's talking about the problems this week. But I think it's important to look at what they said. This is back on the 29th of June 2016. Scotland's fishing industry welcomes decision to leave the EU. And it says here, Armstrong, who was the chief executive of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation at the time, Armstrong said Scottish fishermen were strongly against staying in the EU, even though the country as a whole voted to remain. So Scotland voted to remain. It must not be forgotten that the whole of the Scottish fishing industry, who sustainably harvest seafood from some of the best fishing grounds in the world, do not agree with the stance on remaining in the EU in the slightest. Not in the slightest. So he's saying that the vast majority of fishermen in Scotland voted to leave. For Scotland's economically important fishing industry, we believe the new opportunities presented by the referendum result are overwhelmingly for the better, he said. He warned Scottish parliamentarians to carefully consider all views as they make their decision on the way forward, and held out the promise that the ills of the past overfishing and incoherent regulation could be banished. So if we leave the EU, we can get rid of all this regulation. We can get rid of all the red tape. Yeah, we'll just replace it with new red tape. Much more difficult to deal with red tape. If the UK was able to make its own decisions on fishing after leaving the EU. And this is what really grinds my gears. The idea that you have somebody who's supposedly an expert on fishing didn't understand that the EU was the biggest market, and leaving the EU would create problems. He called for politicians across the UK to embrace the referendum result and use it to benefit the fishing industry, which employs around 11,000 people directly in the UK. Yep. And then we saw in 2020 how fishing became the most important issue. And then after that, with the TCA, they were basically thrown under a bus, or under a boat maybe. He went on to say, we are witnessing another form of Project Fear, when instead we should be working on the details of how we, at long last, make the best out of our new leadership opportunities presented. So you have here the fishing industry in Scotland talking about the benefits of Brexit and how everything will be much better. We can get rid of all this bureaucracy, this red tape, and we can sell around the world or something. Obviously, either these people did not know what they were talking about, or they were lying. Which was it? But as we know, the people pushing Brexit, the richer people, are not going to be impacted by it. The smaller fishing communities, the smaller fishing operations, some of them have had to close. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.